Greetings, everybody! Welcome once more to the Dracovin Empire. Are you ready to dive back into the world of Golarion? Yes, we're heading back to Golarion, the setting for Pathfinder, to learn about the Ekujae. We're going to be learning about yet another one of the Mwangi elves, the elves of the Expanse who are descended from Mwangi. I am your host and guide, Cancer Dracovin. Please do remember to support the channel as best you can. Make sure you're subscribed and do all the other various YouTube-related algorithm things. Alright, if you're ready to go to Golarion, take my hand. I'll lead us there. Let's get going. The portal awaits to Golarion. We have arrived once more in the Mwangi Expanse. Are you ready to learn about another interesting elven culture, which really is more a people, but also kind of a nation? So it's kind of a little bit of a difference. It's one of those things is their culture and people are their nation also, but they're also not a nation. Sometimes these things are hard to define there, so I'm putting it with the ancestries. Anyway, where do we research this if we want to go deeper? Well, it turns out the Ekujae are in a bunch of different sources. Certainly speaking, the Mwangi Expanse books is the one I prefer the best, but they do have some information in the World Guide, and in one of the adventure paths, the Cult of Cinders. That is from the Age of Ashes adventure path. It's actually one that I played through the adventure where you deal with the Ekujae and help them out and stuff like that. So that's why I could also recommend it. It's a good source to learn about. So, who are the Ekujae? That's a good place to start with. They are elves. They are elves descended from the Mwangi. I've done a video about the Mwangi. I've talked about them before. They were the old elven empire. Well, I wouldn't call them empire. Civilization that existed in the Mwangi Expanse pre-Earthfall. And Earthfall shattered them. It destroyed them. Like with a lot of things, they did choose to stay, though. But the Ekujae feel like they are, in a lot of ways, the successor. They can also be seen in many interesting lights. Basically, if you look at them from the outside, they're a little bit cold and different. But there's a reputation for them. They have some deep contact with important groups, like the Magambaya in Nantambu has some deep connections with them. And a lot of Ekujae scholars are respected. They are an ancient group that has a lot of great knowledge and can teach students, spread rare knowledges while gaining knowledge themselves. And their scattered group in the Mwangi is respected. They're mysterious. They guard the Mwangi Expanse in many ways. And organizations that would abuse the Expanse, especially things like the Apsis Consortium, definitely foes of the Ekujae, and not treated lightly. Things like the infamous White Bridge Station massacre, where Apsis, basically slavers, were coming in and trying to take people out. Yeah, it didn't go over well. There's a reason why the massacre there is well-deserved, but also very infamous. The Ekujae showed you don't mess with the Expanse. The Ekujae are skeptical of those that come in. They understand their land is rich with resources, treasures, gold, but a lot of people come in just trying to go for this. And if you're not from the Expanse, you don't know not to mess with a lot of things like that, not to try to extort and basically abuse the Expanse for resources. And yeah, you're not respected. So it's a mess there. If you're reckless, if you're disrespectful, if you just want to, I'll go to this ancient ruins, try to find some treasure. Yeah, you might disturb some kind of horrible dark power. The Ekujae is watching out and being like, hey, no. So if you basically prove yourself unruly, and when they ask you to leave, you don't, it might not be too good for you. So they will avoid contact with trespassers if necessary. Basically, they can kind of be called xenophobic or isolationist, but they're not that way necessarily. They'll first kind of observe whoever comes in, and then kind of determine, how to act. Do they have to contact you? Do they have to ask you to leave? Are you awful? Are you basically exploitative people trying to take over and do horrible things to the jungle that they protect? Or are you just people that are kind of passing through? Are you just a fruit merchant who happens to be there to gather some exotic fruits with a number of people and, take them to a local market nearby? I don't know. It's a different things, and depending on how you treat the forest and how you were there, depends on how you're going to encounter them. The Ekujae are descended from the Mwangi. It's pretty easy as there. Earthfall caused all the problems. And, you know, the devastation it wrought, horrific. It is one of those things that we can never describe how bad it is. But the Great Darkness descended during that time. The Great Darkness is what they refer to as a dragon deity. Dahak. Basically, during Earthfall, Dahak, a dragon god, was coming to Golarion. And that was bad. That was bad for a whole lot of reasons. And it's called the Great Darkness by them. And again, there are legends about it, but it actually did happen. And the Ekujae are prepared for it to try to return. So what happened? Why did this become the guiding force of the Ekujae, their particular group? Basically, Dahak came to Golarion. Well, was coming to Golarion. And then there was going to be great consequences to this. Because Dahak had this kind of problem with Atsu, the other dragon god, the more good one, and would come to interfere with Dahak there too. And this would also draw in other gods. And Earthfall had already effed up the planet. If a bunch of gods showed up then, it's not going to go well. So they were like, we got to stop this. And the Ekujae did the unthinkable. They defeated a god. Yeah, Dahak was defeated. They could not kill this incarnation of the god, though, but they sealed it away in their elf gates, the Audarna, especially the one called the Hunter Gate. They severed the connection while it was in transit, trapping this incarnation of a god, basically the essence of the god itself, between the space of realities, where it could never touch anything again. Dahak has been sealed away in a place where not necessarily can't interfere with the mortal realm or interfere with any realm, but is kind of like still separate out. They succeeded on something insane by mortal standards. And again, like, there are a church, there's followers, there's people that gain their religious power from Dahak. It's not completely gone, but, you know, it is sealed away, so its powers still leak out into the world. There are connections to the evil dragon god, just not the same as it would be. It doesn't have a divine realm, really. It's trapped in a place between realities. Anyway, it had cost, though. Most of the great heroes of the Ekujae died. They sacrificed themselves to booster the other warriors, basically burning their souls, quite literally, away, until nothing remained, in order to gain the power to pierce the scales of a god. Its blood of gold spilling across the lands. Its horns and fangs broken from its body, flinging them into the sea. The amount of lives lost of the Ekujae was staggering. Their people were devastated. It was victory. But it was a Pyrrhic victory in many ways. This was a triumph. They beat a god, but it was also defeat. They only managed to seal him away. It was a miracle. His living aspect of a god, and especially a dragon god, defeated by mortal hands? The Ekujae are the badasses of the world. They are descended from god beaters, almost god slayers. But they know, though wounded and imprisoned, he can come back. That's their failure, that they couldn't finish him off. That's what they believe. They're like, man, we failed. We didn't kill a god. So they are constantly preparing for his return. They're like, you know, he's sealed away, but he's only sealed away. We gotta be ready. We're gonna be ready when he comes back. We're gonna finish him off. We are honor bound to beat this injured beast and strike the killing blow. I love the Ekujae. Now, if you look at them, they have a similar appearance to the humans that live in the Mwangi Expanse. Darker skin, darker brown hair, usually black hair, darker brown skin, black hair, jet black eyes. There's some variation, some duskier skin, some have rose blonde hair. They tend to be a little muscular than other elves because they are warriors, but they are still lanky and wiry compared to humans in general. You know, very unique in it. Some of the things that are unique about them, though, are their traditional white paint that they use to decorate their bodies. These are kind of complex that it will kind of confuse outsiders who don't understand what the markings mean, but they are basically important information. They specify things about your family and clan. They might have information about your profession, accomplishments, various parts of your history, what mood you are in that day. There's nuances to it, but basically there are certain patterns that you'll stick to on your skin. So it's basically most of your patterns of the paint that you'll kind of have on you will remain the same. It's just like there might be little variations there too. And you won't have any major changes because basically if you do a lot of big changes in your paint, it's considered flighty. A lot of the colors that they dress in is green and brown. Hey, good jungle camouflage. And those are the ancestral colors of their people. They use a lot of wood, leaves, leathers, fur, bone for how they make their clothes. Sometimes bark, using some various types of magic and stuff called woodwarping to make some textiles from inner bark that makes it very soft and almost cloth-like. Very interesting ways that they develop their clothing and material. So Ekujae are divided into special social groups called clans. These clans create towns and villages. Clans are self-sufficient. And if you kind of come from the outside, you consider them separate. But each clan constitutes basically a united nation together, maintaining relationships with each other. Ties that are very evident because they're elves. If you're a short lifespan, you don't understand this one. They're living like, you know, hundreds and hundreds of years. Yeah. This nation actually has a king or queen. Basically, the clan leaders come together and choose a king or queen. That is the central authority, but also not. Basically, at any time period, the Ekujae elves have a king or queen. They don't do much. They're there for emergencies. Basically, if a need for all the Ekujae to come together to face a problem, they call on the king or queen. So they're like, you know, they're chilling, doing their normal everyday life from the, you know, chosen by the clan leaders, you know, from amongst the clan leaders. So it's like one of the clan leaders is, you know, just leading a clan, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, yeah, problem that involves all of us. All right, time to get together and lead everybody. That's kind of how it is. Immediate relatives are, you value your immediate relatives, and most consider clan members to be as close as family too. So it's your immediate relatives and your clan members are familiar to you. And the child of one family unit is treated as the child of the whole clan. An Ekujae clan influences the vocation you have. Doesn't necessarily mean you take that job, but the clans basically have specialties there. So if you were in one clan, you might be kind of pushed towards a trade or something like that. And usually also the geographical location might go to one. If you're near an ancient ruin, you know, you might be big for your warriors, your protective magics. While if you're close to a place like Nantambu and Montagambia, the big, you know, wizard school that's there, you might be a diplomat or mage. Ekujae aren't technically born into their clans. This is an important part about there. You're always considered the part of the clan of your mother, and that's part of your family. But when you reach adulthood, that's when you can actually choose to be part of any clan the rest of your lives. So basically, you know, yes, you're raised with being considered part of your mother's clan, but when you get to that adulthood in elven society, you can join whichever clan you want. They will welcome you. You're there. And you're basically expected to be part of that clan for your entire lives. Joining or leaving is actually a very serious matter. Not that it can't happen. And basically there's only a few clans which tend to be a little bit more open towards request for leaving or joining. Most of them are like, here, you're here, you're here. Banishment is basically shame for pretty serious crimes that don't require capital punishment. Yeah. Banishment is considered only slightly less severe than death, which, you know, is the most severe punishment. Within each clan, they democratically nominate and elect the rulers and advisors. All adults have a say in the final outcome. In contentious elections, clan members will actually ask a task of the ruler that proves their worth. Basically, let's say you have a pretty close election between a number of individuals. They have to do something to prove which one of them is the best. Basically, the people will come together, come up with some kind of like way to do that. And once the rules are accepted, the rule and the clan jointly choose the ruler's advisors. Magical, military, spiritual advisors are very important. Also, linguistics, who can serve as diplomats, translators, storytellers, historians. It is actually tradition that Ivorians, those of elven descent and other ancestries, are usually looked after as the best diplomats, translators, stories, and historians, because they have shorter lifespans, they adapt better, they know the times that change, the situations that require immediate solutions. Yeah. The Ekujae understand that, yeah, we live a long time. Sometimes your shorter races have things that are more immediate to them that we don't understand. So having someone that's kind of in that transition period, you know, will understand that better. One of their main deities is Uriel. Uriel is one of the elven deities. I'm probably saying that correctly. Sorry if I butcher the name there too. Yor-Ral. The elven goddess of magic. Both technically divine and arcane. Though divine primal magic is more around the lines of the Ekujae. But still, she is the patron goddess of them. Guardians, scholars alike. They do look to the other elven deities, though, their traditional pantheon. Kethis is the goddess of hunt on warriors. Findel Lara, the goddess of sky. Desna, the wandering moth and storyteller. Callistre, the wasp. And the Ekujae consider a sly trickster figure. Faith for them is personal, though. And their beliefs in the deities can offer inborn gifts. Fated destinies is actually important to them. So they might believe themselves tasked to follow a certain deity or carry a certain deity's agenda. So even obscure faiths aren't rare amongst the Ekujae too. Like, they could find that they have almost a divine calling to a specific deity. They have a lot of complex culture. A varied one. It dates back thousands of years. And that culture still exists even in the day-to-day living of the Mwangi jungle now. They are guardians, defenders of their land. They have to be ready for the great darkness to return, but other demons, dragons, other threats that might show up in their territory, in the jungle, they have to be ready for it. They raise their children expecting that they'll see conflict in their lifetime. They are, again, long-lived. But it doesn't mean that their children can't do other things. It's just that you are raised with a little bit of like, hey, I know how to fight kind of thing. They're formal, though, too. Even by elven standards, with many rituals around swearing oaths, forming bargains. They also value art and academia, interestingly enough. They have methods to keep records that are kind of strange to other people. What I mean is, first off, they have a strong oral tradition and musical tradition. But they also create record trees. Remember they talked about they had that woodworking magic? Yeah. They cultivate trees to grow in specific patterns that grow specific patterns in their trunks and branches that are semi-permanent records of information and events. It's a shape-based 3D writing based on trees that can record physical movement and musical notes, even. Ekujae, learn to read tree. It's a fascinating concept of a language. And it is one of the main ways they subscribe information into a physical media beyond their things. Granted, there are some other ways too. Sometimes they need these thin bronze strips that are woven into tree-like shapes or shape-based, basically for some complex script if they can't have the living tree there. So they will have these bronze shapes that will do the same thing that will be physical. Though sometimes they do have to write things in ink too, but that's, usually when dealing with other people outside them. Entertainment's big with them. Music, stories, sports. A lot of physical ones. Foot races, practicing branches with clay pigeons. Strategic games. A lot of them will have a little strategy game that they can kind of have tokens with them they can pull out to play. A dancing type game called Daikata, where each has these copper ankles and have to kind of like dance to music while trying to ring their ankles of the other opponent and make them have a chime. Basically, it's fascinating kind of culture that they have developed there too. And they're very heavily bonded with the environment too. They're one of these groups that believes They stayed with Golarion when the rest of their elven kin left. They stuck with the planet during its darkest hours. They shed their blood to save the planet from it. They are connected to Golarion heavily. It is a belief deep within them. They shed their blood to prevent the doomsday from getting worse. So they build these elegant cities in the canopies, braiding living branches together, vines to have elaborate structures. They have these non-invasive forms of agriculture, grafting fruit trees under the trunks of their cities, largest branches, growing shade-loving crops in the underbrush. They'll actually name individual animals in their territory, and they'll chat about these. Hey, that local elephant and leopard, you might gossip with a friend of yours about them as you would a neighbor. It's fascinating culture. There are 4 aspects to a soul that Ekujae believe in. The first is what your father gave you. It's your physical form, perception of your physical form. Second is what your mother gave you, your heritage and family. The third is what your heart gave you, your personality, personal tapes. And your fourth is your spirit, what the gods gave you. Your individual part of your soul, that's the intrinsic gifts, divine destiny that is there. And these are all very important personalities to these. Each of these spirits have their own names and personalities, but they're not individual. They're all aspects of the same spirit. And no particular 2 spirits is considered a common source of internal turmoil. Basically, they're not separate entities. They're parts of your same soul. And these complex interactions are what causes maybe turmoil or what's going on with you. When you're happy, healthy, and moral, they're all aligned together. And don't neglect any one aspect of your spirit, because that will cause strife within you. You want to maintain the 4 aspects of your soul. Jewelry is also important to them. They use a lot of natural materials. It might be just something that, might catch some light of a jungle plant, a ray of sunlight. But there are certain traditions when it comes to types of jewelry. For one thing, gems. Only if you use magic are you allowed to use gems. It's kind of connecting you with Uriel. And then they use uncut gems, of course. Brass is important to the Ivorians. Basically, brass being a not part of the kind of more natural thing, basically being an alloy, it's representing Ivorians being an alloy of elven with another ancestry. A lot of Ivorian merchants will often have a lot of brass jewelry, signing of wealth, and basically showing off that they have these handmade ornaments. And actually, Ekujae Ivorians usually receive a brass ornament from their elven parent upon their birth. The biggest taboo in Ekujae culture is gold. Remember I said something about golden blood of the dragon? Yeah, they believe that when the blood cooled, it created the gold in the territory there. And it's cursed by Dahaka. Hey, a lot of dragons and, other ancestries oftentimes covet gold, as if the will of the dragon is basically giving them greed and inspiring them to do terrible things for the gold they desire. So no, Ekujae will willingly wear gold. Except for one group. The Keladi. The Keladi are basically a special group of Ekujae that have sworn their lives to fight Dahaka when the Great Darkness returns. They have special purified gold that they signs to mark them as these warriors that are ready to give their very souls and flesh to fend off a god. They are a living sacrifice. That's the first line that will power into these ancestral foes. It's an incredibly great honor, but it's a sorrow because these people are basically ready to be the cannon fodder of the battle against the god. They will wade in, be the first ones to be slain, and their very souls and beings will help bind the thing again to fight against the great darkness when it arrives again. The plague that is upon this land. There's only so many precautions you can take, though, too. Demons, dragons. The fact is, there are a lot of horrible things that are within the Expanse or outside of the Expanse, nearby enough, that the Ekujae hunt. Fighting these demons, fighting these dragons, helps train them. There's also ancient undead, forgotten arcana, primal evils from time immemorial. There's a lot of stuff there. And an adult will carry various weapons. Silver weapon and a cold iron weapon. Ways to overcome the defenses of various types of creatures. Demons, devils alike. Other things. They wear a cold iron soul guard. A circular disc around their abdomen that helps protect them from demonic magic. Because they're also very vulnerable to dark influences, poisons, corruptions, lycanthropy. The fact is, they are vulnerable for whatever reason to these things. No one knows why. And they also get exposed to this danger technically a lot, but they also have become very good at overcoming these things and reversing a lot of magical poisons and transformations. So, should you be cursed with something like lycanthropy, if you can find an Ekujae, you can maybe save yourself or a loved one that's afflicted by it. But they're very rarely pleasant or simple cures. A little tough. Ivorans oftentimes have their own clans. It's not because they're unwanted or rejected, but because Ivorans live shorter and often will honestly die before their parents. They feel like a place where they can have people that will live like them is a little bit better of a place to be. People that will have similar times to them is better. There are Ekujae Ivorans that do agree with this, but there are also some that want to be more deeply included in the culture of their elven ancestor and more integrated in between the two of them. It's not like a negative segregation, but it's basically kind of one that's a little bit strange. But the Ekujae elf, basically, it isn't unknown for one of them to raise their Ivoran child in their elven clan. And the Ivoran can choose any clan to join coming of age. Remember, I talked about how they are welcomed oftentimes because of their connections to the other ancestries in important positions in a lot of clans. So it's not unheard of that, yes, you have these unique places where they're like, well, you can go over here and be with some people around you, but if you want to be with us, you can. You're just not going to last the same. Sorry. They are the bridges between a lot of the other people around, as much as they are. Let's talk about, to finish up today, Ekujae settlements. They oftentimes have places that are connected to ancient locations of power or dangerous things. Why? Because they can watch it, guard it, fight things that might be there, prevent things from falling in the wrong hands. So, yeah, there's some few remote places that are more safe havens, training grounds, people to watch over them. There are some towns also that are pretty quiet, that maybe only have some excitement during holidays. There are these places of training, circles. There are a lot of interesting places, and, they have a few structures that are in all their settlements, though. Usually there's two main buildings, an open-air communal cooking space, and an enclosed but ventilating healing and recuperation space. Basically, hey, the cooking and eating are essential for living there, and it's a place for respite against evils that lurk nearby. And when a big celebration comes, there's a big meal, big open flame, bubbling pot, great eating spaces, which can be converted to a place for, usually when they're not in use as an eating space, they're converted to like little training areas, and the cooking areas can be repurposed for more medical areas and to make medical supplies, But as I said, these two buildings, it depends on the place where you get. There's sometimes homes, storage, training spaces, an armory. If you are an outsider in approaching Ekujae territory, you will be known that you are approaching. You will be scouted. Before you would get to the settlement, they're aware of it, and they will judge you before acting. They might seek guidance from the elders when someone's approaching. And, that depends on revealing either, letting you pass, or maybe revealing your presence and escorting you to the settlement. And sometimes it means confusing and directing the outsiders away from the settlement, too. Getting lost in the deep jungle without any respite. Yeah, it must be performed sometimes. If you are a very terrible person, they want you to go there. So we're going to talk about two main settlements and basically a type of settlement. So Akravel is kind of the core of the Ekujae in a lot of ways. It's home to the Leopard clan, and it's basically set upon the ancient temple where the Hunter's Gate is. That way station that basically sealed the Haka in. The gate is there. Basically, it's near the temple of Katifis. And it's basically a very strategic fallback point, a launching station, place of recovery. Scouts constantly monitor the Hunter's Gate. And this settlement is pretty large. It went from a couple dozen places to a massive area. It is around a dangerous ruin, and there are some dangers to it, but its place is a lot more home-like to its residents. There is also always that fear that something go wrong, something lost. It is like right next to the front line if the battle between the god happens, But it's not enough that, there's some community, family, compassion, a nice place to kind of hang out. It has a standard communal and training areas, and it has an ever-expanding cluster of private homes. A few communal sleeping spaces for visitors from other clans, and an occasional adventure, and some food and grain storage, and a small smokehouse. Doesn't see a lot of uses, sometimes when it's needed. And the buildings slowly spiral outwards from the center. Building new ones or relocating as is necessary. The other major city is Ekujae. It was established when many families of assorted clans watching over especially dangerous areas basically worried about their children. We're all watching about this dangerous area. I don't know if it's a great place to raise the children. So they established a special settlement deep within the jungle that was secured with simple access from several other settlements. Basically, it's defensive homes that's a compromise from these different clans. The ownership rotates depending on who needs it the most, and the settlements also has space for the basically raising children and spreading across the community, allowing warriors needed elsewhere within the Expanse to lead their loved ones in a basically trusted place. It is one of the few places that, outsiders don't get allowed into. If you're a traveler and you need aid, you're turned towards another settlement. Before the Ekujae who have come and seen you disappear into the trees. Most of these population is basically civilians, as older cultures would see. There's some small-scale farming, trading, crafting, study, basically various things, education. It's a unique place that basically a handful of settlements support it, and, there are some other settlements like Ekujae. There's another one where elders that don't act as mentors in various places actually go to, it's like, we're past our time as elders or, mentors or don't with, and, maybe they're not at a circle. Which takes us to circles to talk about. Hey, circles. They're another type of Ekujae settlement. We've kind of talked about their two different types of settlements now here. The, people-protected settlements and the we're launching after a location settlements. Circles are different. They are academic centers and martial training grounds. And they do break a little bit of unspoken rules of the Ekujae, basically because they have some ground-based buildings for training as its central feature. They're very not ground-based. Basically, upon reaching maturity, if you're a warrior of Ekujae blood, you're encouraged to attend and begin training at one of these circles. Trainings have a battery of various physical and magical combat tests to basically show where your aptitude and focus should be. You basically go for the rigmarole of seeing what your best skills are. You get at least a couple of years of intense training, depending on your area of expertise. If you train as a warrior, you spend less time studying combat forms and learning. Those who train as warriors spend less time studying combat forms. You've already learned them, basically, as children. Hey, remember, you're in a dangerous, kind of more militant group to a degree. Everybody gets some basic combat training, but you learn more about the threats of the jungle, demons, the hawk. If you favor arcane combat experience, you kind of meld learning, building your skills, and associated theory and lore on top of that. So it's kind of like you kind of have these different focuses as you need to in the various circles. And you will continue your education independently in some form, even after you've finished here. Maybe training or learning under an expert from outside the clans, or finding a master among your people. There's a lot of different reasons. There's a reason that a young Ekujae might travel to find someone that could help particularly teach them in their specialty. Maybe there's not someone in one of the clans that could help them in their things. And so, yes, divine and primal magic are a specialty here, and you'll find them there. But maybe if you are an arcane master, you might have to travel to another place. Hey, a nice magical college down the way that you can maybe go attend. But, supporting the healing warriors, both in and out of battle, is very important. Amassing a lot of knowledge about your foes is very important. So, yeah. If you're training capable, those who prove themselves capable in training are given a final test, accompany a Kelid on a mission. Usually the one that shouldn't prove lethal, but tests your capabilities. Return to the mission, you're determined if you should be capable standing on your own. There are many Ekujae who return to the circles to refine skills, learn more, mentor those that come after them. So the thing is, I might come back to a circle after years because I'm like, I want to develop a new skill or like maybe refine my skill a little bit. So I might go there because, hey, maybe some elder is there teaching people. and he could maybe teach me something I did not know. He's teaching the younger people. I'm still younger than him. I could still learn. A few parts, one part of a circle that is basically allowing outsiders is their library. Basically, library was built when Ekujae on the Auri, a journey of self-discovery that many take before entering circles, returns home with books and scrolls and other materials with knowledge. These are a hyper-focused collection on all the evils of the world, potential ways to thwart them. Basically, these little libraries that they built together, network together between all the circles, rival those in Absalom and a lot of other places. They basically deep dive into occult, demonic, and other threats that might be there. And even times they connect up with the Ekujae. You know, they understand that their fellow Ekujae descendants are very knowledgeable, but they also have this kind of like, you're kind of stepping a little too close to this evil, but you have that knowledge, it might be good for us to pick up. But there you go. There's Ekujae, a fascinating elven culture. I hope you enjoyed kind of diving into here and learning all about them, because they have all these aspects to them that are fascinating to kind of talk about and deep dive into. They are, I feel like, of the three Ekujae descendants, the most well-developed. Again, they got an adventure path that focuses on them to a good degree, so I can understand why. But it is very interesting, a lot of the directions you can kind of talk about and kind of interesting aspects of their culture. Perhaps in a lot of ways, they're one that you more likely will encounter out in the world too. They have this kind of connections with what is going on in the world and a need to learn more about it and bring it back to help in their great fights. You have to be ready to fight a giant, horrible dragon god when it returns, and, you know, it's not going to be pleasant. We got to be ready because, hey, our ancestors didn't kill it, but we are. That's the out. Ekujae. And I hope you enjoyed learning all about it. Anyway, I'll leave things there. Please check out the rest of my material that I have. Join me on Twitch. Great, cool. You can see all this kind of stuff I do live. If you're joining me on YouTube, hey, remember, make sure you subscribe. Do all the various things there. And let me know what you think of the Ekujae down below. You know, they are, again, as I said, probably the most developed of all the cultures, but each of the successors to Mwangi are very interesting in their own rights. So let me know what you think about them. Please check out my social medias, and yeah, thank you all for joining. Discord's the best one there. Anyway, I'm going to get going. We'll talk about more tabletop in the future, and until then, I bid you all a deep and wonderful farewell.